Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Figuring It Out at the Figure Studio. I'm your host, Kim David, and we're here with Rich David, the amazing community leader, organizer, and also professor. So we're excited to get into it with Richard and tell you a little bit more about how he figured out getting to where he is today. Welcome, Rich.
Good to be here. I'm doing great. You know, it's summertime and I always feel like I get a different level of energy when it's summer.
Yeah, I mean the sun is shining. Yeah. I love it. I'm not mad about it.
And I'm in here at the Figure Studio, which is always beautiful and bright. Yeah, this is going to be great.
Awesome. So to start, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing currently? What are your current roles?
Yeah, so my day job, I work with the city and I help nonprofits access city government. And what that means is they get access to funding, they get access to legislation and policy, and I get to shape that for nonprofits all across the city, including here locally. That's my day job. And everyone knows that if you're good and you're an organizer, you got your day job and you have your night job. So I have a couple.
That part.
Yes. Oh, you're talking about the night job.
Yes.
So I'm a district leader. I'm an elected district leader here in Assembly District 31. As a district leader, what we do is we try to grow the base of the Democratic Party, and we try to get more people involved. What I've been doing is taking a bit of a different approach. You know, we've registered a lot of people to vote. We've made sure that people know what the Democratic Party is. One of the things that I realized, because we have a low voter participation rate, a lot of people are actually registered, but they're not registered with the Democratic Party. And in New York, that means you can't vote in the primary elections. If you can't vote in a primary election in New York, your vote counts a lot less. It's almost not counted at all because the decisions are usually made in a primary. So getting that information out there as district leader is something that I do. We also get a voice in selecting candidates that have the Democratic Party support, judges, poll sites, appoint poll workers, and it's entirely unpaid. I do this because I want to make sure that our community is politically empowered. I think that, you know, we have a great system. We're just kind of locked out of it right now.
Absolutely. So being district leader, you know, I think things are changing, but it's rare to actually have someone representing your community that looks like you. Can you talk a little bit about what that means to you and sort of how your relationships with the people that you represent might be different from others?
Yeah, and you know, that means so many things because we don't have a lot of young people elected in public office.
Yeah.
I still consider myself relatively young.
Oh, you are. Yes.
Thank you. So, but we really don't have a lot of young people in public office. We also don't have enough people from immigrant backgrounds in public office.
For sure.
When we're talking about things right now like driver's licenses for undocumented residents, that's something that I care about. And I think that when you come from an immigrant background, you know how that matters to you and to families and to people that you're connected to in a way that someone who isn't just cannot. We get to champion issues that are important to us. I'm also Guyanese, and as a Guyanese elected official, I've never actually lived in a country really that had someone in a political position that looked like me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what it also means is district leader has always been a ceiling for folks in Queens that look like us. Hopefully we can change that, and being involved, being engaged, and learning how this game is played is something that we have to get a lot better at.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep trying, and I think we're going to break through.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
we're going to figure it out.
Yes, and we're all here supporting you doing that. I just want to talk a little bit more about what you just mentioned about being able to figure out how this game is played. So, you know, we're seeing it on a national and federal level, how hard that is, and how hard it is to actually be able to break through and how much support you do need to be able to do that. Can you talk to us about how you learned how to play that game? Where did you start?
I mean, the truth is Black and brown communities have always had a harder time breaking through in anything we've tried. Opportunities just aren't given to us, and we have to kind of figure it out. And you have a different set of disadvantages when you don't have people around you who also know how this works. And what I mean by that is, how do you actually put together a winning campaign? Not just a campaign. And how are you a part of the thought process and the strategy of that campaign, not just knocking on the door? or not being on the retail side of that process. And accessing that very limited amount of capacity, knowledge base in our community, it's just not there. And so one of the things that I've done is, I know that the way that we're going to make progress is by building relationships with people who look like us, because sometimes the divisions are greater in your own community of people who look like you, and then building bridges with people who are from different communities. As communities of color and people of color and black and brown neighbors, whether you're a Latino or something else, we have a set of things that affect us equally. Those disadvantages that I have also are affecting black and brown communities that aren't Guyanese or Caribbean. And so turning to those folks with more experience is the way to do it. And then trying and sometimes failing. You know, I ran it 2 years ago for the city council. I gave it my best. I really worked hard. We knocked on doors. We raised more money than just from small donors than anyone else. We had this amazing campaign. Everyone was talking about it in the neighborhood. And we had more people vote here than have ever voted in an election like that.
Wow.
And then we lost spectacularly in front of everyone. And that's not an easy thing to recover from. But I know that I wasn't doing it for myself. And I know that I didn't want to stop even if I failed. And the way to figure it out is sometimes failing. Because then now, when I'm running again, I get to look at what went wrong and, you know, maybe iron some of those things out. Hopefully, I'm figuring it out as I go.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, one thing that I've learned throughout my career is really there almost sometimes is no such thing as failure to an extent, because really those are all just learning opportunities. Sure, that's a really optimistic way to look at things, but that's how you grow. If you didn't have that lesson, you know, would you really be able to approach your next steps in your next phase in the same way, with the same amount of wisdom that you might have based on those experiences?
You know, definitely not. Like if I had won that seat, then I don't know what the opportunities would have been. Losing also meant that I was able to pick up the pieces, and now I'm district leader. I ran again and I got elected as district leader. With that, I'm able to do so many more things that I've never been able to do. We recently renamed a street here in Queens after a person who had passed away from the corrections officers, as a correction officer. And that's just not something we had ever seen in our neighborhood. And it was because of ridiculous and senseless gun violence, which is very present. You know, I don't know that we would have been able to do that if I wasn't district leader. I also launched a course. I teach a course that I created working through many years in this community at your college. Now, when we talk about decolonizing education, making education relevant to the people who are living it and learning it, that's what I'm doing. I'm teaching people their own history for the first time ever.
Right.
It's a personally fulfilling and empowering process. And the students are not even like Indo-Caribbean or Guyanese or Caribbean. And what it shows is that we can learn about each other and still have that level of respect. And that's what this is about.
Definitely. So what's the name of this course?
Indo-Caribbean History 401.
Awesome. And
just,
yeah,
if I can add there is already an Afro-Caribbean history class. I get sometimes people are like, well, why aren't you doing an Afro-Caribbean history class or just a Caribbean history class? One, that my expertise, I know more about Indo-Caribbean history, and there have been for a long time an Afro-Caribbean history class. 20-30% of the students at the school are Indo-Caribbean or South Asian, and it's shocking to me and it's remarkable that the colonization of education continues in a place like that we have such a visible presence. So I want to make my contribution, and we had a great first semester.
Awesome, congratulations. So I do want to talk a little bit more about this class and sort of how did it come into fruition. So when was the first time that you sort of had the seed of an idea to have a class like this? Or was it something that you were approached about? How did it come to be?
Yeah, so I co-founded an organization called the Indo-Caribbean Alliance, and that organization did a lot of work in the neighborhood, bringing artists to read books that were internationally popular here in this neighborhood, in South Ozone Park. And they did film screenings and all kinds of really cool things. And then we reached out to your college. I reached out to your college. This was probably 5 years ago, and I've been lobbying and petitioning them to do an Indo-Caribbean class. They didn't pay attention to me until after the election.
There
And
you
since
go.
then,
Yeah.
they've been great. I couldn't have asked for better partners in doing this, but they weren't paying attention to me before. So this has given me an opportunity to have a greater voice for this neighborhood, for the people who lived here, and have lived here for, 2-3 generations now.
Absolutely. How did you come up with the curriculum for it? How did you actually, did you have any teaching experience prior to this opportunity?
Not full time. And I went to the Dominican Republic, and I got a bunch of books from the Indo-Caribbean collection at Queen's College, at Queen's Library, and ICA, the Indo-Caribbean Alliance, had actually created the Indo-Caribbean collection there.
Right.
Some of those books I've read, but not a lot of them. So I took a bunch of books, I went to the DR, and I just read a lot. And I had already been playing with what a curriculum would look like, and I had done that for a long time. And ICA, Indo-Caribbean Alliance, had done a couple of studios where they presented to the community focus groups on how this history can be taught. And so I used some of that history as well.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you were really able to turn your experience as a community leader into another opportunity where you're now not just empowering the people who live here, but you're also empowering people through traditional education.
Yeah, if you're going to make a difference in any community that you live in, you got to know your own history. And I'm so tired of reading and learning about everyone else's history. It's made me a more well-rounded person, but it always felt like a void for me because I didn't know my own history. And that was motivating because I've always wanted to know more. And this kind of information that we have from our parents is kind of like some of them are tales. They're not entirely true, incredibly valuable, but I also wanted to know what the text and the research shows.
So I know obviously you cannot condense this course into anything that we would be able to fit in this podcast at all, but just to give our listeners and viewers a little taste of what that knowledge might be, can you kind of sum up at least the general structure for the course, or just a few points that you want to share with other people who can't necessarily take that class, just to let us know a little bit more about our history?
Yeah, someone said to me, you got to do it as an online course, and so
that is a great idea. Yeah.
Maybe we can do it. We can do it as an online course, but it's chronological. It starts pre-South Asia, pre-colonization rather, pre-partition. So it starts in the 1830s in South Asia, India. There was only India at that time. Then we look at the social, economic, and political factors that led to migration, why people wanted to leave, and why people wanted to bring people to the Caribbean, the West Indies.
Right.
Then we focus a lot on what the process was like in the West Indies, primarily in Guyana, Trinidad, and Suriname, sometimes Jamaica. We can't cover all the countries because every country really has a unique and a independently rich history. So we do try to pick out big themes from every country and kind of blend them together. In that, we find fascinating things like this guy, Dechu, who wrote about changes that he wanted to see on the plantation. And these are written documents that we can turn to now that led to tremendous social change. So these people have always been people who have fought against the condition that they were under. In the same way that we believe that our neighborhood here can be different, that we can change this place that we're a part of and make it a more welcoming, safe, bright, friendly environment. And actually we're very blessed to be in a beautiful neighborhood. And then we transition to New York, where we are now, and we talk about this large wave of migration that is in New York and the Caribbean community here. And we do different things. We have a lot of authors come or just Skype in and talk about their work.
Yeah.
We screen films, short films. The attention span isn't that long, especially for students.
Yeah.
And then we also we did a exploratory learning course where we did a tour of Little Guyana in Richmond Hill, so people can touch, taste, feel what this culture and this assimilation process has been like for the Indo-Caribbean community in New York.
Definitely. So you mentioned, thank you for that, by the way. So you mentioned that a good
Do
portion.
you think that it has a future as an online course? You think?
I do. Yeah, actually, we'll talk about that online for sure.
That was the real pitch. But if you guys think we should do an online course, write in the comments, and maybe Kim will take it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I just wanted to ask about, of course, you mentioned that a good portion of your students for that class are not Indo-Caribbean, or are they Caribbean at all?
A lot of them are from Haiti.
Okay.
Or their parents are from Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica, just African American, Latino, Dominican Republic.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what's some of the...
There's actually only one person of Indo-Caribbean descent in the class.
Wow. So what's some of the feedback that you are hearing from your students about the course?
They like me as a professor because they think that I'm able to bring in activism and things that are currently happening and drawing connections between what's happening now in our society with things that have happened in the past. We're able to show how history repeats itself and how we can avoid some of these things.
Right.
Like this incredible nationalism that's happening in this country through this president. There are precedents for that in even our own history. And, when we know that, we're able to hopefully avoid it. But the feedback has also been, that so as a pilot course, they want more guest speakers. They want to see more richness in the class in terms of access to art and music and other things.
Yeah.
So, and then they want more diversity of texts. So that's something that I'm going to incorporate into the course and making sure that the second version is improving off of this one.
Wonderful. And so you kind of touched on it a little bit, talking about, I believe it was B2, but how has learning more about our history and also teaching this course influenced your work as a district leader?
How does teaching this course influence my work as district leader? I think they're really they are mutually supportive. They kind of bleed into each other. A lot of this work that I do has become so interchangeable. These students are students who live in the neighborhood. They are not, some of them don't, but a lot of them do. The colleges, of course, here. And, as district leader, I also have an opportunity to talk about how we can get more young people involved in politics. If we continue to rely on folks who are in office, who pass away in office even, then is that system that they are part of reflective of the needs of today, or is it holding on to a system that had been there when they first got elected to office? And I think experience is tremendously important, but I think that we have to figure out where is the space for newer voices, newer communities, more women, more folks who look like the people who are this great mosaic of New York City to get into public office. As district leader, that's what I get to do. That's what I get to promote.
Cool. Essentially what you're talking about is disrupting the status quo. And I think that you not only see it in our government at all levels, local and national, but you're seeing it everywhere across industries, where just younger people are able, I think the internet has helped us just be able to learn a lot more, a lot quickly, and gain more experience to be able to challenge that status quo a little bit better.
The internet?
Yeah, just collectively the whole thing. But it's true. If you don't know something, all you have to do is look at the computer in your hand or in your back pocket to find the answer.
That's right. And I think when we talk about disrupting the system, I think that there are two ways to do that. One is you can think of revolution, and you can think about working in the system and making changes. Evolution. And so, I think that depending on your personality and what's right for you, you're going to pick one or find a combination. The key thing is, though, if you limit your activism and your involvement to just a digital community, to the internet, it's a very dangerous thing. Because one, what we're seeing is that voices on the internet are great, and they sometimes have the power of silencing the large majority of people in neighborhoods like this one, where folks are older, they're not using the internet the same way as other people, and you think that popular opinion is what this latest hashtag is and what's trending, and it's not. It's not the bread and butter issues that people here care about. It's not the, it's not theoretical. It's a pothole that hasn't been fixed in ages. It's sewer lines that are flooding out people's basements. Yet, as property owners here, predominantly property owners, we're paying more taxes than anyone else in New York City, and we live here forever. We're not transient, and we get no services. And we gotta fight to get basic services like cleaning our streets.
Right.
So I don't see those kinds of topics trending on Facebook and Twitter, on the internet. And I just wonder, where is that balance? There's still in this neighborhood at least, a vibrant civic community of interperson communication. And I think while there is incredible space and we gotta use all the tools that are available to us,
right.
I think we also have to challenge ourselves as young people to not just, we're blessed because we are so accustomed and have such ease with technology. It's actually a curse if you only rely on that.
Absolutely.
Because we're leaving out so many people in that process.
Right.
And we think we overvalue our own opinions.
Mm-hmm. And I think to really put a finer point on exactly what you're saying, I think that the idea is just supporting a message, a movement, whatever it is on social media does not translate into action that influences people's real lives. Oftentimes, yeah, sure, those things can help support public opinion or public support of something, but even that doesn't get people to vote, or it doesn't get people to actually take an action that does something.
Absolutely, and I think it's dangerous, right? Because we've seen it with this president. It's dangerous. We have a real election coming up, and for president, and there's a chance that this guy could get reelected.
It's bizarre, yeah.
Because he's found a way to manipulate popular opinion, and I think it's such a tremendously dangerous thing. You have candidates who show up overnight, no history of any community involvement, nothing, and they believe that their social media activism is what's going to take them to the polls. And I'm going to call Donald Trump's election a social media election. And he won. And we're seeing how dangerous that is. And so I think that, it's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to be very, very careful that the people that we're supporting, we have to ask really tough questions. Did you just show up overnight and think that you can change the world? Which is an incredible thing. But I think that there's also, I've always been someone that action speaks louder than words. And I don't want to see your Facebook. I don't want to see your hashtags. I don't want to see how many followers you have. I want to actually be able to evaluate something that you've done and how you did it.
Right.
Maybe you alienated everyone in the process. I think you have to build consensus and have a history and a track record.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me, it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
I don't even know how we went down this line.
No, it's okay. So, sorry, I'll push this back out. So, talking to people online right now and listening to us on their phones, what is one action that someone can take to actually support their beliefs today? Is it calling for senators? Is it what can they do in their local communities to actually do something positive?
So, first of all, you have to identify what is the issue that's motivating to you. Is it that your kids are going to school and there aren't after-school programs, or your kid is bullied in school and you feel like your kid then becomes the victim twice, by the bully and by the school, because now they have to be transferred? And so do you want to be a parent activist for better education for your student? There are tremendous avenues for you to work with your school or to challenge some of the systems in your school to improve that for your kid. If you think that, for example, you want to see more people, active and participate and have a block party,
Mm-hmm.
have a block event, go talk to your neighbors. As shocking as that is, if you just got a petition, let's say you created a Facebook group just for, Lefferts Boulevard and this one block area, and you post updates. Find digital communities even on Facebook. Facebook, a lot more people are on there, and it allows for digital communities.
Mm-hmm.
Look for your digital community in your neighborhood. South Ozone Park has one. There are dozens, and you'll see that people are posting lost cat. People are posting, that they want to see, more, faster sanitation pickups. They want to see more trees. They want to see, more activities for families.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things, I think once you find what your issue is, the platform is the easy part.
Right.
I think it's finding, and then allies is the third part of this. We know that social change doesn't just come about because, of one person. The idea might be one person, but we live in a very open society that has to bring people together. And so building, even if you're a small business, how do you get people, how do you get customers? That's when you figure that piece out, if it's going to be digital or flyers, old school, or if you're going to actually just be present. Being present in things that are important, maybe not to you, but to the rest of your community, is an incredible way for people to build understanding and support and even drive customers to their business or to their social justice platform.
Definitely, well said. So I kind of also want to talk about something that we touched on a little bit earlier where, we were talking about breaking into spaces that, there might not be the experience of like people of color or many young people involved in, and how you might need the support of people who are already succeeding in those spaces or systems. Can you talk a little bit about getting involved in the political space and who maybe you sought out for mentorship or how you sought out others for that kind of support who are already existing in those spaces?
Yeah, I can talk about that. Almost reluctantly, to be honest. One of the biggest barriers that I can constantly try to overcome, even today, is when I bring up, I'm running for office, or I'm a politician. It's almost seen as a bad thing. It's almost seen as let's leave the politics outside, and it's hard for me because I have to overcome this mentality that everyone has of politics being something that's undesirable, and that you're in it for like wealth or self-gain or something. The reality is, the more we shut out politics, even young people, the more we don't engage, and the fewer of us that actually decide that they want to be a part of this actively and not passively, then I don't think things are going to change. And I have always been a person of action, and I want to do things, and so I continue to tell people it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like politicians, we have good and bad politicians, but then you see these scandals and this person stole, or you actually have that in every industry. And so it's an unfair label, I think, that when you say all politicians are this, I want to make sure that when we talk about politicians, our generation is going to own that word, and we're going to take control of what it means, and recognize that if we don't change that impression, if we don't change it now, then we're leaving space only for people who are going to manipulate us for things that aren't in our interest. And so how did I get involved in politics, and who's helped me along the way? It's hard to find elected officials in our neighborhood who are willing to mentor you.
Or that even live in our neighborhood that they represent.
Yeah, or that even are open to that, So there aren't a lot. I go breaking down a lot of doors. But there are incredible people, And I say this to folks, look, we all have like our favorite actor or a favorite, show that we watch. Who is the person that you go to for local political advice? Who is it? And if you don't have one, find them. And if they don't exist, then become that person. Because if you don't have somebody that you trust locally around politics, then where are your tax dollars going? Then who is making the decisions all around you about your bus route, your train route? These are the things that actually matter. And if you don't, and so answer the question, take a moment. Who is the person locally? And I don't want to hear about what's happening in Washington, D.C., because it's important, but it's far away from home. The most important politics is the one that happens right in your neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And if you can answer that question, then you have someone that you can go to locally, then politics means something to you personally. And I've always struggled to find someone that I can go to locally. And for a lot of people, I feel like I've become that person to go to locally. My phone doesn't stop ringing. And And it's amazing how many people you're able to help just by, hey, have you heard of this? Have you seen this? And it's just a text message response. And people are like, I had no idea that I can get free citizenship help. No idea. And I'm going to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to go through an application process when I'm actually low income and I could have benefited from a free service. There's so many more examples like that.
Mm-hmm. So we are talking a little bit about things that people can actually do to take action to make change happen. Mm-hmm. There are two pretty big things coming up next year that are going to require some action. Can we talk about what those are and what people can do to get involved?
Yes, I'm going to talk about three.
Sure, yeah.
One, so 2020 is the U.S. Census. Every 10 years they do a census. I oversee the Southeast Queens Complete Count Committee. We want to make sure that everyone is completing the census. Whether you're undocumented, whether you don't have access to the computer because it's going to be online, we want to make sure that everyone is completing the census and making sure that they're doing it for even the child, the baby, the newborn that's in the household. Because every single living, breathing person we have to account for. The risk of not accounting for all of them is because here's the risk. When you pay your tax money and it goes to the federal government, the IRS, they decide when they're dispersing funds back to the states how much money New York gets, how much money California gets. Funding is distributed based on the size of your population. And then it's subdivided by districts, the size of the population in those districts. For everybody that goes uncounted, it's money lost. So I get to be on this platform and to talk to communities all across Southeast Queens and in Far Rockaway, in Rosedale, here in South Ozone Park, about why completing your form in 2020 census is going to be so important. Are you ready for thing two? That was only thing one.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I just want to talk about the census a little bit more is, yes, that is how funds get distributed. Can you give some people some real examples of exactly how, either through research or how community planners might be using the information from the census to impact things that are happening right here after we complete it?
Absolutely. When you think about how funding is distributed, for example, to hospitals to deal with something like suicide or alcoholism or high blood pressure or cholesterol, what do they call these? Like the Caribbean seas or something like that.
Oh, I had not heard that.
They affect like a lot of people in minority communities. Mm-hmm. The federal government gives funding to healthcare, and funding goes to hospitals and different needs for different hospitals to study and to research and to treat things like suicide. But you're not going to see that come to neighborhoods where people aren't, one, identifying as a certain ethnic group or even completing the form altogether. We know that we failed. We failed because in the 2010 census, I worked extremely hard in the 2010 census, but the response rate was still lower here than other places in the city. And what it means is we will continue to be, on the short end of the stick.
Absolutely. And I think the number nationally or federally is over $600 billion a year gets determined.
The federal government distribution.
Yeah.
That's right.
Based on the census information. So if we don't have participation, then we will not get a cent of that money.
Complete your census, go online, and if you don't know how to do it, just hit me up. I can help you.
Perfect. All right, so what's number two?
Okay, so thing two, I gotta make sure, look, I don't like how the voting process works. I think it sucks. I think we are working towards early voting and other things, but remember when I said we gotta learn the system and play the game? A part of that is registering to vote and dealing with an archaic system. The more we reject the system and it sucks, it does suck. But it sucks because it allows the people who are benefiting from it to remain that way. And so we gotta learn how to do it. Register to vote. Go on the DMV website, you can do it online. Pick a political party. It doesn't mean that you can't vote for who you want to vote for. But if you don't pick a political party in New York State, you will not get to vote in the primary election. Winners are decided, they're elected actually in the primary election. They're the more important election. And so if you don't get a voice there, then it's as though you shouldn't register to vote at all. So please register to vote. Please pick a political party. and you can choose to vote for anyone you want to vote for, even if they don't happen to be the party that you picked.
In addition to yourself, are there other community resources that people who need to register to vote can turn to?
Yes. So here are the places you can go to vote. If you are online, then you have a driver's license, go to the DMV. That's one. You can go to your post office. There's usually like a table with just random papers. You'll see voter registration forms there. You can also go to your library. They're available in 7 or 8, there are many, many languages. Those are other options.
Awesome.
And there are always like street fairs, and we do a lot of events here. We almost always have voter registration cards. And people always tell me, oh, I'm gonna do it at home. It's like on the dining room table, it's still there.
Absolutely.
Or they'll tell me, I've already registered, but they're not registered with the political party, so they can't actually vote. So re-register if that's the case.
Right, and keep checking. When an election is coming up, just check that you're registered under a political party. These things can change,
Yes.
So it's really important to stay on top of that too.
If you go to voting.nyc, you can find poll sites, candidates, anything you want to know.
Great. Awesome. Can we move on to number 3?
Thing 3. Okay, this is big, guys. Are you ready? This
Yes.
is big.
Ooh, bracing myself.
Oh, hold on. I've been district leader for actually a very short period of time, and district leader has always been a ceiling. I'm running for a new position for the New York State Assembly in District 31, and I'm gonna hopefully, with your support and continued involvement, break through. I want to be elected because there are so many things happening in Albany that affect our neighborhood. Things like making sure that we have reform around education, making sure that folks can drive if they are of legal age and this is something that they want to do and they are otherwise fully qualified. There are some incredible things that are happening in Albany that we're not fully involved in, and I want to be an assembly member because I think that we can benefit more and we can bring more resources to this community with me in office.
Absolutely. So just to dig into that a little bit more, can you just explain how this role would be different from what you're currently doing as district leader?
So being an assembly person, as district leader, it's totally voluntary, it's unpaid, and I try to fit it in at nights, weekends. As an assembly person, that's your job. You have an office. People always say to me, can I come sit with you and meet in your office? And I'd say, but can you please email me or text me the issue because I don't have an office.
Yeah.
And so we would be able to have an office. We would be able to have people who can help. If you have an issue on your block or your neighbor or the music just doesn't turn off because it's summertime, we will have people that are able to help. And as an assembly person, you get to vote. You actually get a vote on legislation. As a district leader, you're influencing the party. You're not influencing the legislature.
Definitely.
So that's one of the key differences. And also, I think you're breaking through the ceiling, and that's we just keep aiming to go higher and higher. That's what this is all about.
Without a doubt. And I mean, that just goes back to your point number 2. If no one is registered to vote, we cannot support Rich David. So
that was a little self-serving, but so
no,
what?
Absolutely.
I need your vote, and I want you to be registered. And this is how you get registered. Pick a political party. I'm asking for your support. I think that if you don't know me, I hope that you will get to know me, and I hope that you'll give me a chance. And I promise you that I won't let you down, and I hope that you'll hold me accountable because it's a two-way road.
Definitely. Well, we're excited to see the things that you'll do. I mean, it is beyond meaningful to have someone who looks like the community actually representing us. So we're proud of everything you've done so far, but also that you will do. So one of the last questions that I have is, what would you tell somebody who is looking to break into either the community organizing space or the political community's leadership space?
Absolutely. 1, don't run against me. 2, no, please,
advice.
Run. If you want to break in, look, I said don't show up on day 1 and think like you know everything. We have amazing community organizations. ICA, Jahaji Sisters, Caribbean Equality. We have so many organizations here. Join one. You don't have to agree with them, but at least hear what the conversation's about. And if you want to go to more traditional spaces, we have community boards. I was on my board for 10 years. I was the youngest person. And you have police precinct councils. You have all kinds of civic associations and block associations. you gotta be a part of something. And again, it doesn't mean you agree with it, but it at least means you know what your neighbors care about. They have a reason for showing up. And if you think you want to be in politics and you want to make social change, then then you gotta at least understand, even if you don't agree with these people, what they want to hear about. And maybe they'll listen to you after you've heard them. So showing up is very, very important. Go to those spaces. And there are all these trainings. I went to a lot of trainings. I went to the Latino Leadership Institute. I highly recommend it. I feel like I left there not just with theoretical knowledge, but here's how you do petitioning. Here's how you do fundraising. Here's how you convince labor unions to support you. Those are valuable things that you don't get, unless you go to a course. And the Latino Leadership Institute is just one place. There are dozens of others.
Definitely. And sure, being a part of those community organizations are a way to get started, but also you are that person who can be a point of outreach for these individuals who do want to be more involved, or at least learn about what it takes. So the fact that, again, that there is representation that is a little bit more approachable is probably a helpful resource as well.
Absolutely. And let's say you don't agree with any of them, then do your own. There's nothing wrong with that. Create your own. Do your own small business. Do your own small arts organization, cultural organization. If you don't think that what you want to see is available here, make your own. And people will join you if they agree with you. And I'm sure you better be very good because people are going to be counting on you. And you have a chance to be, somebody that people will turn to. And it's an incredible blessing.
Definitely. And it's also, having a seat at the table, right? Going back to you talking about learning how to play the game in order to change it. Building your own organization is a great idea, but also remembering that you need to be able to have it be heard in the broader space.
Yeah, and so, but be responsible in the process. I think that, I've seen a lot of people who do this and either just burn bridges, tear down everyone around them, and it's just, I think you gotta, we all gotta win. It has to be win-win. This attitude of, win-lose is actually very dangerous, and, communities are only unified and stronger when you have people who are willing to work together. And so while I encourage people to do their own thing and blaze your own trail and your path, and believe me, I'll be there with you. Don't, disregard the people who have also been here. Don't disregard the businesses who, for example, I know a lot of people talk bad about some businesses who have poor customer service and all kinds of things, and some of them really do. What I also get to see is that those same business owners are there at 4 a.m. in the morning. They're not closing up until 12 at night, and they're there all day, 7 days a week. And it's incredible how much sacrifice they're making for their families. And in the process, they're creating institutions and symbols of, pride for our community. And so I think, as district leader, we get to talk positively about our community. I love this neighborhood. I want more people to be proud of this neighborhood. I want more people to come here, shop here, and speak positively about the place that we're a part of. Some people will tell me, they'll say where do you live? And I'll say, I'm in South Ozone Park. And I'm like, oh. You'll get this. You'll get this.
I'm sorry, but the New York Times actually not too long ago had an article about why people should move to South Ozone Park, so you can just send them that link.
Well, not too many. We don't want to
Yeah.
But my point is, we are so blessed to have a neighborhood that reflects us, that has our shopping needs, our exercising needs, our culture, our arts, and I think it's beautiful, and I think it's safe, and I think that it's a place that we can call home, and it feels like home, and that's where I would want to raise my kids. I choose to live here because we have access to all of this.
Absolutely, I can't agree more. So just to wrap it up, is there anything else that you'd like to share about what you're working on currently, or just about yourself with our listeners?
What I'm working on currently. So I am working on the city's budget. The city's budget is about to be passed, we're hoping next week. Once that's over, then I have to turn more attention to a full-time campaign because I'm running for the state assembly. In the meantime, I'm still chairing the census committee. I'm still working on 100 projects to bring a workshop on something like affordable housing here. You know, we actually have a lot of affordable housing, but people don't really know how to apply and how the process works. So I want to make sure that that's available here. I'm also working on a grant workshop. We have amazing organizations, and there's so much money out there. I want to put together a workshop, it's already in the works, of how organizations can apply, how they can qualify, or what is the path? Maybe you don't qualify tomorrow, but at least you know if I do these things in a year, I'll be here and I'll qualify for this kind of city funding or this kind of private grants. So I'm putting that together as well. And I'm open to ideas. I want to work on different things. I also joined a committee to rename the street for Kali Charan, Uncle Kali. He recently passed away on Hillside, and that's not even in the district. But they reached out to me because I'm a district leader, and and I can probably help because we renamed the first street here, and so I want to help there too. There are so many things that I'm involved with in addition to teaching and my day job. I want to be a resource, and I want to make sure that you are also a resource to your friends, your family, and your own neighborhood. Don't just send all the people to me. Empower yourself too.
Absolutely. So where can people reach you, either online or in person? Where can they find you?
And so online, you can reach me at, I'm on all social media, Richard David. So send me an email, richdavidnyc@gmail.com. You can send me a text message. I prefer text messages over phone call. 917-310-5148. 917-310-5148. I try to make myself incredibly accessible. In the neighborhood, if you reach out to me and tell me you want to meet up somewhere, I'll probably be there. And that's how you can get in touch with me.
Very cool. Well, thanks again for your time and sharing a lot about how you figured it out and how you got here today. Like I said before, we're so excited to see what you do next, and we're really lucky to have you in our community.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm figuring it out. I'm in the process, and any platform like this where we can connect with your viewers is really a blessing for me, because I think I have important things that can help somebody. So thank you for bringing me on.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for watching this episode of Figuring It Out at the Figure Studio. Stay tuned for our next episode coming next week.